Anyone who's ever done anything worth doing has dreamed big, failed mightily, and mostly started from humble beginnings. This is a podcast about such people. The most fascinating podcast in the world is fascinating because of the stories of the human beings. Hello, everybody. This is Pat DiCerbo, the most fascinating podcast in the world. And the reason it's fascinating is because of the people that agree to talk to me. Today we have Rick Bennett. Rick is a lifelong hockey player. He played at the highest levels of the sport. He is coached at the highest levels of the sport. And welcome, Rick.
Yeah, Pat, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. As I mentioned, I'm in the habit of asking people where they grew up and about their earliest memories. Where are you from originally?
I'm from Springfield, Massachusetts. And, just kind of been known as where the basketball, Hall of Fame is. So being a hockey lifer, a little different, but a lot of hockey players have come around since from the area, which is also, kind of I shouldn't say unknown fact, but it's just something that is
little known.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, you got a lot of people around the area, from that Springfield area that have gone on and played the NHL and coached as well.
That's terrific. What are your earliest memories of growing up in Springfield area?
Just the fact that it was just a sports community, and that's basically what I was, surrounded by having, a grandfather that, supported us through, numerous sports, having a father that had played semi-pro hockey, and then, as well as baseball, and just basically just growing up around a community that was really supportive in the hockey and other sports world, and being able to, kind of participate in all sports.
How old were you when you started skating?
5 years old. So we were 5. There was an actual line, all 5-year-olds playing on an age group back then, a little different than it is today. The age group at that time was 6 to 10. So we were the fourth line. I think we might have scored about 2 goals that whole year, but it was something you never forgot.
2 goals, that's not bad.
Yeah, we'll take it. I can't tell you today. I can't even remember that of the line which guy actually had the one or both goals, but I just know we had a lot of fun.
That's great. So did you go to grade school in that neck of the woods?
I did. So I went to, Springfield public system all the way up until classical high school, which is not there anymore. And they've turned it basically into apartments, and it's basically in downtown Springfield. So that was about, 7 miles from my house. And they since combined it with a technical school. Now it's called Central High School. So it's basically 2 in 1. And I think it closed down, about 2 years after I had graduated in 85.
Mm-hmm. And how did you decide on, was hockey your only sport growing up, or did you play baseball as well?
Yeah, I played baseball when it was time. It was a three seasoned calendar year. Started out in the fall in soccer, and then hockey, and then baseball. And then I got to, you get to a certain age where you just, one sport you favor towards the other, but hockey was always number 1. And I'd have to say soccer was 2 and baseball 3.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how it played out.
Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have one sister who's younger. So she's living in the South. So that was the family dynamic.
Was she a hockey player too?
She was not. She was more into gymnastics, went on and did modeling and all that stuff outside of basically sports. So she was actually a pretty good athlete because she would play with us, and not hockey, but just other stuff around the area.
Mm-hmm. So you played all through high school?
I did. So I was fortunate enough to play classical high school, played 2 years there. A great memory. We had won they called it the Western Mass Championships. I think it was my junior year, and that was a lot. I mean, that was a blast, and played for a really good coach who since passed on a couple years ago. But it was really kind of a memory that I'll never forget. Was taking the trophy from, our championship at Union to his place, his cottage, and it's in actually Otis Reservoir, which is about an hour from here, and just kind of celebrating with him and his family, which was a special moment that I'll never forget.
That's really neat. You stayed in touch with him.
Oh yeah, he was great. He supported me throughout my after I left classical and college, and tracked me in pro, and then once I got into coaching, he was kind of a soft spot for him. So he kept in touch, and I'd see him at the Frozen Fours here and again, and we just stayed in touch.
What was his name?
Jim Carlin, his name was, and he was man of few words, but when he spoke, you listened, and just a good person. That I actually played with his son on one of the teams in my career there in high school, so that was special as well.
You still in touch with the son?
More so through, friends. Hey, so and so said hi. Well, yeah, please say that I said hello. So more through friendship. Friends back home. I think he was about 3 years younger than me at the time.
Mm-hmm. So how did you decide on what you were going to do after high school?
Well, it was interesting. High school senior year, teacher said, all right, everyone in the classroom, like a homeroom before you had your classes, write something on the board of where you're going next year after high school. So I think I wanted to be an Army Ranger. I had like 3, or actually 2, and the other one was I want to go play in Sioux City, Iowa in the USHL. So those were the 2 that I had for after. Well, none of those came to fruition. I went to prep school. I was lucky enough and had a lot of help along the way, to get me into Wilbraham Munson prep school, because we had actually played them my senior year. So the coaching staff, reached out, and like I said, I had some good help from Sheriff Ash, longtime Sheriff Mike Ash, had helped, and this guy named, ironically, Phil Collins, who we called Coach Collins, and actually played with his son there. So between the 2 of them, it really helped me to get into Wilbraham Munson, and spent a year there before going on to Providence College.
What do you remember from that year in prep school?
I remember being in a different setting, and what I mean by that is there was a lot of, let's just say, coming from Springfield. I mean, we had enough to get by, and I was fortunate to play hockey, which is not a cheap sport, but we didn't have a ton of money. Where prep school, seemed like a lot of the students there had a lot of extra money that we just didn't have, and I was kind of blown away by how wealthy, the students were at Wilbraham Munson, but good people too. So, and our dorm was kind of segregating the fact that it was more, our whole floor was all PGs. It was called postgraduates, and every player that was there seemed to be in a specific sport. I was there for hockey. My roommate was the football quarterback. He also played basketball. He went on to UMass Amherst, and so it was really cool to get to know other PGs there that played different sports that I just found really interesting. Getting to know them and their different sports and their backgrounds.
So did you end up feeling like you belonged after a while, in spite of the disparity between the sort of the wealthy kids and the...
Yeah, it was different going from school with wearing, back then they called it corduroys or jeans and a t-shirt, to wearing a sport coat. So that was definitely different for me. It took a while to get used to that, but once you do, everyone had it. It's the same setting. But again, everyone was really welcoming once you got to know them and they got to know you and your sport. And it was kind of nice because however you were doing in your sport, it just wasn't if you were doing well, great. If you weren't, you weren't. That was okay too. So we had some pretty darn good players on the team, and these other sports had sent a lot of players on Division I that were really good athletes in other sports, but it wasn't emphasized as much as you would see today. And I kind of like that. It was a little quiet.
How did you decide what you were going to do next?
Well, I was told by my counselor, because I told her I wanted to play hockey, and she says, "Oh, great, let's write down." She gave me like 30 schools to pick from, and Providence College was 30. And at the time, I was joking around. She said, because she said, "What about Providence College?" Because she had known that school because it had been to the final game and got beat by RPI in that final game, and I think 85. And I looked at her and I said, "Hey, this is how much we knew back then." I go, I can't get into there. That's Ivy League." She goes, "No, it's not." So, it all just kind of, other schools played out. I took a visit here and there, but nothing really serious until I didn't really actually commit till late that summer. I was kind of said, "Oh boy," I was fortunate enough to get drafted, which I think helped. But at the same time, I didn't have really a school per se going into that September 86, 87 year. And then Providence reached out, actually came to a summer league game too. And that's basically when I, had signed very late.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was a different path, that's for sure, that you don't see it today.
Did you get a scholarship?
I did. I was fortunate enough there because I wasn't, just like I said, we weren't well off for me to pay for college. So it was, a full ride or bust. And I was just really fortunate.
That's great.
Yeah.
What was that team like?
It was a big class coming in my first year to Providence, and we were, they, like I said, basically 2 years before that, they were in the final game in the NCAA tournament. And then the next year, through attrition, they just kind of lost some players, and a great goaltender. When I came in, he had left, was Chris Terreri, who went on to play in the NHL for many years. And so it took 2 years for us at Providence to really get going. And then the last 2 years were, pretty good. And a lot of good hockey players we had in that team. And I credit their coach, my coach, Coach McShane, who I keep in touch with, and, the assistant coaches that we had in my time, and just the recruiting prowess to bring in players that, could help us get better. And some of these names in the recruiting and my coaches are Dick Emili, who went on to be one of the better coaches in college hockey at UNH, and Scott Borick, who's now coach at Merrimack College. So, and then you had Tim Army, who's coaching in the National Hockey League, assistant coach today. So, Stan Moore, we also had, which was another I coached at Union and Colgate, Colby, I believe. And so we were really lucky as students and players to have a coaching tree like that. And that's what helped. So that's what helped us kind of get to the next level.
So your last 2 years, what kind of success did the team have?
Well, I would say the most successful team would have been the team that went to the NCAA tournament my junior year. And it was just a different format back then. And so we were shipped out to Northern Michigan, which was ranked number 1 in the country. We beat them. I think we got beat like 8-0 the first game or something crazy. And then we were fortunate enough to win the next 2. And that put us at Maine. And that went another 3 games. We got beaten overtime the third game, which sent Maine to the Frozen Four. So I would say that year was really special. Really special. And then senior year, we had a really good team. Fortunately, we had some injuries, self included, and it just never kind of took off the way we wanted it to. But still had won, I believe, to 20 plus games with all that adversity. We just didn't make the tournament.
So hard to do, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you look back as a player, and then you look back as a coach and say, geez, it's like the same thing. There's no guarantees by any means. And I can, being fortunate enough to see the promised land, but going into that year, yikes, it was saying, I remember saying to our equipment guy, Dave Baglio, who's still at Union, going, where are we going to get scoring from? When Josh Juris calls us up in, I think it was first, second week of July, saying, I'm signing with Calgary because he had been out development camp. So you just never know, but because sometimes you're right as a coach, you're right up on your lineup chart and your line chart and depth chart and all that, and going, geez, is this a team that can win the NCAA tournament? And the answer at that time was, no, it's going to be a hurdle. There's going to be a lot of hurdles to do that. And when we lost Josh and Troy Grosnick, an All-American goalie, it was uphill battle. And it kind of reminded me of my some of the playing days on some of those teams at Providence.
So you're a senior. Before we get to that,
sure.
You're a senior at Providence.
Mm-hmm.
You graduate. You were injured, but the game plan was to play in the AHL.
No, I had every chance to. My goal was to play in the National Hockey League.
Okay.
We all think we're going to play forever, and so I had left basically after our last game in college, and I never forgot it. All the players and everyone went to spring break, and I went back to Springfield and was just waiting to sign, and eventually it happened within days, and I was shipped off. There was I never forgot it. There was a limousine waiting outside my door at my address and picked up and whisked me off to the practice facility, and I practiced with the Rangers right there that year in 90.
In Purchase, or where was it?
Rye Playland.
Right.
They called it, yeah. So that was exciting. That was a lot of fun. And I think a defenseman went down, and then, not that I played defense, but it was a body, and that allowed me to play like the last 6 games or so in the regular season for them.
For the Rangers?
Yeah. So go from college to the NHL, boy, that was a jump and a half. But, a memory that you never forget.
What'd you do after that? After that first season?
Right after we got beat out in the playoffs, I think it was Washington. So it was like the second round. I went back and...
Who was on that team?
I'm trying to think when you look back. Kelly Kissio was a captain. Ron Greschner, Mike Gardner, Troy Millette, some Mike Richter, Brian Leach. So there was it was a good team, really good team. And Chris Nyland was really helpful. But it was just, you're there, you're the new guy, and you're taking everything in. You're trying to learn as much as you can, for the following year or training camp. But right after that season, there's not much of a breakup in pro hockey. It was, I packed my bags, told them, hey, I'm out of here because I got to get back to school because I want to try to salvage some classes. And that's what I did. And then I just took 2 in the summer to get my degree.
Okay.
So, but I thank my family, grandfather, father, even my aunt for, pushing that to get my degree. But my college coach he was really on it. And I had so much respect for him. And his words were, you're not going to go pro until you promise me you're going to come back. And I believed him like I couldn't do that. But, that's how much respect I had for him. I promised him that and I did it. And again, thank goodness, because I would never had a chance to coach in college without it.
Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, some teams will allow guys to come back and get the degree while they're coaching, but that's very rare. Very rare.
I did not know that.
Yeah. That's advice you always pass along to the players who may want to get into that field later on.
Yeah, I talk about my brother-in-law, PJ Stock, all the time. He had a similar route to you. He went through the Wolfpack, but then the Rangers.
Right.
And then he went to Flyers and Montreal and ultimately Boston.
Right.
But in all that, he didn't really have time to do college.
Right.
He didn't play college hockey.
Yeah. No, I know that name. Boy, I give him a lot of credit. He battled hard and played hard and made a nice living for himself, doing what he did. And it's a rough profession. And he went the hard way.
Tough way to make a living.
Yes, it was.
He did it.
But he did it. No, I give him a lot of credit. That's impressive.
And he's super smart. He's actually really good at Scrabble, if you can believe that.
Okay. No, I never doubt a hockey player. Never. But yeah, that's like I said, it's all different paths now with the new rule changes and everything else. PJ Stock might have played college hockey. Who knows?
Right. So what'd you do after that with the Rangers?
Yep.
Did you go anywhere after that?
So basically just right after that summer, just went there, spent 3 years in that organization with the Rangers, up and down, more down than up. And then signed with the Hartford Whalers for 2 years. Brian Burke was actually the GM for about 17 minutes, signed me, who was a former Providence guy. And then I had a crossroads to make after my 5th year in the American League. Do I go to the East Coast, be a player assistant, or do I keep keep playing in either American League, or they had an IHL back then, which was an older league, but equivalent to the American League. And I just made a decision to go to Jacksonville, Florida to be a player assistant. And I'm glad I did.
What was that like?
More player than assistant, but there were times where I had to step in and help, minor, because the coach was really seasoned. Like, he knew what he was doing as far as recruiting and bringing players in at that time. But there was a couple times where if he wasn't there for a practice, I'd have to, basically as a player, run some type of practice. Nothing elaborate, but we got enough to get by. And, the guys were great. So that was kind of like a stepping stone, like to know that you could coach when the guys basically paid attention and they weren't, clowning around out there. They kind of respected what you were doing. And because we're all in it together, and they were really good. And that was probably the eye opener about coaching. Could I coach? And that was, I would say, the first stepping stone.
That's neat.
Yeah, I was lucky too. I mean, the coach, I don't know if he did it on purpose sometimes. All right, Rick, I'm not going to be there. The draw, there was always a running joke. He would say the drawbridge is up. is coming from where he came from. And then one practice was sitting around, I said, hey, the drawbridge is up, and we're sitting around like doing a stretch, and someone says, Rick, he doesn't even go by a drawbridge. I said, interesting. So, he was a great coach, a good guy, and he had a lot of success. But and then after that, for 2 years, it was on to this place called PD in Florence, South Carolina, PD Pride, and my second coach in Jacksonville was Bruce Cassidy. So that was a tremendous experience. We still keep in touch today. And then you had Jack Capuano, who went on to coach the Islanders when I was in Florence, South Carolina, for two years. So you just never know.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I can just picture you when you had that epiphany about the drawbridge.
Yeah.
Because it's such a nice way to introduce you. It was like a little white lie, right? But it took the pressure off.
Yeah, it was. I think the guy who I still keep in touch today is Mike McLaughlin, who played at Vermont and played in the same Ranger system as I did, and good player. And he lives in a town over from where I lived, but he was a couple years younger than me. But we still keep in touch and laugh about the stories from that Jacksonville team. And I think he was the one who actually brought up the story about the drawbridge, and I was like, holy smokes, and he's probably the one who called it out because there wasn't much you could get by him.
But it's such a subtle thing for the coach to do.
Yeah. Now, again, whether he did that on purpose or not, I to this day I don't. Maybe he was trying to recruit a player or something and didn't have the time. But to fire out the drawbridge was up. I always thought that was funny, and but that's what you get at the coast level too, right? So it's a different world there than it is in the NHL or even the American Hockey League, even today.
Well, another thing is there's a lot of sort of subtlety in the recruiting process, right? He doesn't necessarily want everyone to know what he's doing.
Correct. And he worked from home.
Mm-hmm.
He worked from home. I didn't even know if they had an office back then. When I was, that was a long time ago, and I think that was 95, 96. So a lot of those guys just worked from home. And it wasn't like you had a lot of video to watch either on players. So it was a lot of word of mouth.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, but again, it was a great time. That probably one of the best times I've had as a player was that 95, 96 team in Jacksonville that we were
player coach,
but again, it was more player. Was actually fortunate enough to bring in Mike McLaughlin, the guy I told you about, who was a really good player and helped us in our run to get to the finals. And if you saw this group of characters, it was almost like the Red Sox when they called themselves the Idiots or something like that, right? So it was, everyone was a character, but it worked. And it worked up until our goalie got hurt in the finals, and we had knocked off 1, 2, and 3 seeds. And we got to the 4th seed, our goalie's shoulder was shot, and we got swept in 4. But it was a run and a half. A lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I almost feel like when you tell these stories, like the chemistry of the team is so critical, and it's allowed to develop a lot of times in these ragtag organizations. Or I shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
When it's a team that you don't have high expectations for initially, and then they start to gel because there's no pressure.
Right.
And I feel like in some ways that might have happened. You had a long time with these players over like 11 years at Union.
Right.
And I feel like at some point the pressure lets up a little bit and you can just do your thing without, having to worry about what everyone thinks,
Yeah. To your point, yes, the group in Jacksonville, there wasn't high expectations. That was for certain. Because we were, I think the 16 teams made it. And here we go knocking off 1, 2, and 3 just in the playoffs. And then we got to the fourth, and we just, like I said, we just ran out of gas, and our goalie got hurt, who was instrumental to get there. And, the bus would break down. There was always something going on, but it also galvanized the team. Every time there was some sort of adversity, we just kind of laughed it off and just kind of put it behind us. And we had some older guys too, so that helped. And then the younger guys kind of fueled the fire too. So it was a good mix, really good mix.
Mm.
So
when you were done in Jacksonville, what did you do then?
I just went to, I got traded. I requested a trade, and I give Bruce Cassidy credit. We were good friends in that year too. And again, player assistant, he had come in, and that was Bruce Cassidy's first year coaching. And I just knew right from the get-go that we were going to hit it off, because his first intro to the team was, I don't know what a player's coach is, so I won't be coaching like that. And I said, all right, this is exactly what we need. And he was awesome. Like, he was a really good coach. And obviously he's gone on to be a Stanley Cup champion. But that summer I just had, after 2 years and just the grind, and just needed to switch it up. And he traded me to Florence, South Carolina. I can't even tell you what the trade was. There are a few players involved, and I went with Jack Capuano for 2 years in Florence, South Carolina, and had an absolute great time there too as a player assistant. And I had a lot more responsibility there, in Florence. Not that I wouldn't in Jacksonville with Butch, but it just was what it was. And I knew Jack from playing against him in college. So it was a pretty seamless, transition.
Mm-hmm. And then what?
Then I got the call. I hate the word retire in hockey. I'm not a big fan of it. I moved on, we'll say. Maybe because I don't ever, always want to think you're still a player. But So I went in the front office with the same team in Florence and worked in marketing, selling advertisement and just doing all the different types of stuff, which was great. But that lasted about basically the season. And that was kind of going to come back and play again. And then I got a call from Providence College about the assistant coach position. So I went interviewed, and I have, I kind of knocked myself here. I was just, it's almost like I didn't come across like I wanted the job, and I felt, and I wasn't going to get it. And then I called the coach. I remember saying my wife.
Who was that?
Paul Pooley, who's now moved. He was at Notre Dame for years. He was the head coach of Providence for I think about 10 years. Just now left Notre Dame, was associate coach there for, good knows, probably about another 15. And then now is at Colorado College with a Union alum, Chris Mayotte. So it was really interesting that I got a good lesson, like in interviewing. You got to come across like you want something. If you want something, go out and get it. And I just kind of had a bad feeling. And I told my wife, I was sitting there in South Carolina going, you know what? I want this job. And so I called the coach. I called Paul at 8 a.m. in the morning. My wife was like, I don't know if it's a good idea. I go, this is a good idea. I'm doing it. And I called him and said, I want this job. I want this job. I'm an alum, a little bit easier transition because I know the school and I feel I can help. And that thing kind of sealed the deal.
That's a great lesson in assertiveness.
Well, yeah. Like I always feel if you want something, you better go out and get it because it's not going to be just handed to you. And if it is handed to you, get a little nervous.
Amen.
Yeah. So that was the path, and spent, like I said, 5 years there. The assistant coach is a guy I played with, David Berard, now the head coach at Stonehill. Tremendous guy, big help, really big help in my career. Still keep in touch today, and he was also the backbone of me getting to Providence College as well. And then Like I spent 5 years together. Then Tim Army came in, and this is where I learned about Hockey 101 in the coaching world. Just like I learned it getting traded in my time at, in college or in pro. Well, now I was learning it in the college world of getting fired. And people don't like to use the word fired, but last time I checked, it's when someone doesn't want your services, to me, that's fired. So I moved on, and about a week, it seemed like a week or a week and a half, I got a call from Nate Lehman. Come on up for a visit and check out Union. And I didn't know a thing about Union College outside.
So Nate was the head coach at Union.
Correct. Yep.
How did he find you?
I would see Nate, him and Ron Ralston. Ironically, they worked together at Providence College when they were at Harvard. Just in the recruiting at games. But I didn't know him. I didn't know him at all. And just called and came up, and I give Nate, he made it really easy, and it wasn't really like an interview. He just kind of showed me around, talked about some stuff, and next thing I know.
When can you start?
Yeah, it's exactly what it was. And because he was getting married that summer too. I felt bad for him. And he was great. And Nate was obviously a tremendous coach. Good guy, and his wife Alice is super, and now they have a few kids now, so it's just totally different from when I met him. His path too. So, but that was a good. I really lucked out, like getting that call.
So you go to Union, you're walking around campus. What was it like when you first? When I first went to Union, I was a little kid, like 5 years old. And GE used to have their Christmas party there in the field house. Right. And my uncle would get us tickets. It was like a circus kind of thing. Right. And I was just in awe of the college. What was it like when you first went there?
That was the same. And we had been there, I believe, the year before at Providence and tied.
Mm.
And we still joke about this, David Bard and I, that I was actually up in, I always call it the crow's nest, where that's the Ken Shot territory there. They watch the games, mm-hmm. right overneath the visitors' goal. Mm-hmm. And we were in a 5-on-3, but we were the 3. And 2 of the guys in the 5-on-3 both had broke their sticks on it. And you're just watching this develop. And it wasn't if they're going to score, it was when. And sure as heck, it took a bit, but you could just see it building. And then, again, they got it. But we got out of there 3-3, and I felt we were lucky. And I go, boy, that's a hard-working team that really stuck with it. And so I didn't get a chance to see the campus a ton on that visit. Mm-hmm. But when I went for the job interview, that was impressive. Mm-hmm. That was really, really impressive. Kind of had some attributes of kind of the school I went to in Providence College. A little smaller, but just clean, which I thought they were always like that. A clean college that, not trash all over the place. And it was just, really respected it. Really respected. And the people I met were great. Like I didn't meet a ton of people on my interview. It was really kind of Nate, and that was it. I didn't meet Jim McLaughlin until later. So, and then it like I said, it was a pretty seamless transition.
What year was that?
The summer 05.
Okay.
Yeah, summer of 05.
So then you and Nate worked together for
6 years.
How many years?
6 years.
6 years.
Yeah, correct. And when I went, it was Billy Riga, now the head coach of Holy Cross, for 3 years. We worked together. I always say worked together downstairs, because that's where the offices were. Mm-hmm. And then Ben Barr for 3 years. Mm-hmm. Now head coach at University of Maine. So, again, just surrounded by really good people.
So Nate leaves.
Yeah.
Are you immediately installed as the head coach, or do they do a search and then say?
Yeah, no, it was again, we talk about I had previously that summer, if I'm not mistaken, I was interviewing at Lowell, and it was between obviously the guy who got it, who's an alum, Norm Bazine, and a year previous I went on the Brown interview. So as Nate is telling us that he's going to Providence College, it's Ben, myself, and Nate sitting in the office at Union, and he says, I'm going, and he asked us, hey, do you guys want to go come with me? Ben said yes. I said no. Basically, I just said I've already done that, which I had at Providence. And I was just going to roll the dice. And then Nate goes, hey, Jim wants to see you. Then I was offered the job. Next thing you know, get home, get a suit, you got an interview, and the rest was kind of history.
Wow. What was that first team like the first year out of the gate?
I will say, people laugh about this, but or whether they laugh or not, I guess, but that was the best summer I've ever slept. Because I knew as a coach and working with Ben that I knew what was coming in, like for players. It was a good group. And it just said, you know what, to go with these guys coming back, and we had lost a lot. That was, I believe, the John Simpson, Luke Kane, Adam Przisnik group, Brock Matheson, like a really good class. Keith Kincaid had signed, but there was a feeling that, all right, this is a good bunch of guys that are going to work hard, and it was going to work. Did I think it was going to be a Frozen Four team? Absolutely not. But again, it wasn't. I felt good about the team. Now the easiest call was hiring Jason Tapp. Just knowing that I'd work with Jason because he was a volunteer at Union, and he was a goaltending coach who was really smart as far as, the game. So he could work with the forwards, he could work with the defensemen. I knew he could work with the goalies because he had proven it and did it well. So Jason was anointed working with the D, and it was funny. He goes, I haven't worked with the D before. I go, well, you have now. So he had all summer to figure it out, which he did well. And it helps. You have Matt Bodie and Shane Goss-Spear back there, along with Gene Gross and the rest of them. And then Joe Dume was the next hire, which was, I felt just like Jason, a home run.
Mm-hmm.
So we just worked well together, and I had a staff, and all guys just worked hard, just got after it. And then Joe Beal was the volunteer, who was awesome. I really liked Joe. I just felt we needed the component of someone who went there,
mm-hmm.
who knew the program, and the program knew him. And Joel did a great job for two years, and now obviously he's at Providence, doing just doing a phenomenal job there too. So that was the breakdown. But like I said, once we got all that done, the season kind of took off, and we had some great leadership. Probably one of the best. He's right there as the best ever, is Nolan Joseph White as a captain. He had such respect that he was one of the few guys I felt, and there were other guys before him that had trouble with it. And we had talked about it, but you either have it or you don't. I feel that could come across, if he got on you, it didn't feel personal.
Mm-hmm.
It never did. And he would talk to you, and to this day, he's just a first-class guy. And I just felt that he did it differently than like a Matt Bodie did, who was another phenomenal captain. Awesome. Super guy. But just a little bit different in the way, because, one's an All-American, and Nolan was, he didn't play a little bit first year, and then his path was just totally different. But their paths were different, but almost the same, becoming captains of the program and doing excellent jobs, like phenomenal.
Understood. So, can you tell me about the championship run?
Yeah, that was, again, it started not, I don't know how many people know it, but it's just, maybe they don't know it, but that started after we got beat out the year before, got to the, I guess you call it the 8.
Was that Ferris State or?
No, we got beat by them in the Frozen Four. But this was the second year. Second year, we got beat by Quinnipiac, and that was the game where I think they've changed the whole system because of it and how they work the NCAAs now. Is we beat Boston College in Providence, but the game didn't finish till like something crazy, 12 something, or it was nuts. We didn't get out of the rink till 1 or something ridiculous. And we had to turn around and play Quinnipiac. We just didn't have anything the next game. And
like at noon the next day or something?
It wasn't noon, but it was a quick turnaround, it felt like, because we just got out of there. And by the time guys get to bed and settle down, you're looking at 2:33. And we were on the bus, and we're coming home from that. And I says, you know what? We got to set the table. We got to set the table like you would for dinner. Like, just set the table for next year so we're not playing in that game. Set ourselves up to be in the best position possible to win this thing. And that's what you see, I guess you call it the old Achilles now, right? Is the trophy there with the table. And that's where the table theme had come from. But it was through, losing that you come up with it. Now it's on the bus ride home. And it actually took a different path, Pat. And the fact that when I said set the table, I thought after each win, we were going to set the table like you would a regular dinner table. But these guys took the puck and put it on the table after each win. So they had, a lot of say in it, which I liked better than my idea. So
that's what you want, right? You want complete buy-in.
Yep. Matt Bodie set the tone, as they say, and everyone followed. It was great. Now where they come up with the puck thing on the table, I don't know. I've never asked. So it just took a life of its own. And I just hope that travels. Whether it travels to the new rink or not, I don't know. But, I know one thing that'll travel is the banner and, the team picture, which I'd always joke and say, we need a Hoosiers picture. We need a Hoosiers picture. If anybody's seen Hoosiers at the end, there's a picture and they kind of talk about it. And I said, all right, it was so special to have that Hoosiers picture in the rink with that team. And just to be a part of it, right? And
to be a fan.
Yeah, I mean,
I have a funny story. I was following the year, obviously, and then went to a couple after parties at Geppetto's, and that was fun. Took pictures for my brother-in-law and with the team,
Sure.
And then I had a triathlon scheduled for New Orleans, and it was the Sunday after the championship game in Philly. So it was an Ironman triathlon, a big deal. And I was like, oh, should I cancel the triathlon and go to the game?
Right.
So I ended up going to the triathlon and watching it on TV with these triathletes in a bar in New Orleans. And these guys had flown from L.A. Some of them were, one of them had a lot of money, billionaire, and he chartered this plane. And there was 20 of these triathletes on this plane, and they kind of took me under their wing, and they were watching the game with me, and they said, how are you not there? It was it was a really neat. Everyone's got a story, right?
Sure.
Where were they when we won?
It's always, it's funny you say that, because I still to this day hear it, and it's not just people from Union.
It's other people.
Oh, I can't even tell you how many times in recruiting I hear it. Especially for the kids from Minnesota, right?
My brother-in-law called me. He said, you guys just smoked a very good team.
Yeah.
That Minnesota team.
Yeah.
And there was some woman in the bar watching me cheer and the guys from California. And she comes over to me and she said, "Did you go to Union?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "So did I."
Oh, wow.
What are the odds of that?
There are a lot of those "what are the odds of that" stories out there that I've heard.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's, I will say this. I don't, like, it's like one of those miracle type movie settings, and shame on me for not, as a coach, following through with some of the stuff that could have happened from that, because I was just thinking about the year after and what we could have maybe done off that would have benefited Union. But I was just always, as a coach, you're thinking about the next year and how it affects that team and, so on and so forth. But again, you see these documentaries and everything else, and I said, this thing was beyond special. It's
No doubt.
the last financial aid team that's probably, I don't want to sit here and say ever going to win it, but I should say financial aid team that doesn't have the Ivy moniker behind it.
Right.
So I don't know of any other one that has done that. I just don't know. I haven't done the history check, but I just know it's a special team, being a financial aid school, that I just think it's going to be very tough to ever duplicate.
To replicate.
Yeah. Because now basically all the teams are scholarship schools, right? So
right.
except the Ivy Leagues.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the year before,
and even some of them are
right,
the way they do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We all get a little help, and don't get me wrong. It took a team, and admissions was good to us, but they were good to us in the fact that they did it through, they did it right. They just, they didn't break any rules or anything like that. It was just the same stuff we were doing all along. It's just we just knocked it out of the park with just good people. No
doubt. And they were smart kids. They got good grades.
Oh, absolutely. Like that was never going to get sacrificed at least in my time. It was, you guys we're going to work hard in school, and then when we get to the rink, we're going to work hard there. And hey, after, you're going to have your fun. I got no problem with that. And they did.
They did.
They really did. And like I said, it's one of those dynamics where it just worked. And it worked for, a few years. Like it did.
Yeah. We had some other near misses.
Yeah. But the old token, sometimes you got to lose to win. Boy, that was a saying that was so true. So.
Agreed. And there's so many stories of that. That's the hero's journey, right? You have to have adversity, overcome the adversity, and then you get the gold.
Right. Right. But
even close, like just watching that Boston College game in the semis with Johnny Gaudreau, and I felt like he was so good. If anyone was going to beat us, it could have been him.
Well, the adversity in that game, you're fighting you're battling a, penalty kill, 3v5, right? You're on the PK, and we got out of that one. And then you think you're up 2 goals, and Johnny Gaudreau starts, here we go, got arrested.
Hot.
Yeah, and we thought at the end of the game, boy, he really controlled him. I think he had 3 points and felt like about 15 shots on net.
Right.
And they had other players that were, Kevin Hayes and Mike Matheson, and the list went on. So, and then I just felt as a team, were we just happy beating BC?
Right.
But that wasn't the case because of just being weathered at that point. And I knew, and I always felt too, to get to Tampa, it was a chartered flight. And our guys had never been on a chartered flight. I'd never been on a chartered flight. So it was, first class living versus going down to Philly. We're on a bus, something we were used to. And there was a different feel going to Philly than there was going to Philly. It was all business. And I know I don't know if the guys even knew what I was doing, but I threw on Rocky 2 because of the Philly theme. And I wanted Rocky 2 versus Rocky 1 because Rocky 2 we won. So it was kind of our second time at the Frozen Four. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the producer or director is a Union grad. from the Rocky movies. So
wow.
there was a lot of like hardworking team, Rocky, a lot of from similar traits. And I just said, all right, that's the movie. Now, whether the guys were paying attention to it, Pat, I have no clue. But
do you ever really know?
No. Some guys may joke about it. I don't know. We had our staple movies that Shane Gostisbehere has stuff in his house, or someone told me about the Warriors movie, which we always used to watch. And I'm trying to think of the other one with Patrick Swayze offhand there, Roadhouse. Mm-hmm. So those are like two of the staples that we'd always watch. And it was just kind of fun. The Roadhouse was good versus evil, and the Warriors was, we're going to band together as a, I don't want to say a gang but it was just like a team.
So you've had a great career as a player all the way through high school, college, pros, great coaching career, great family man, a lot of friends. Sounds like you keep in touch with every coach you ever coached with and a lot of the players. If you had to sum up your life and your career, like how would you sum it up?
I still feel there's a lot. I'll say a lot left because I'm getting a little bit older, but you're
young.
I'd like to think so, but
sure,
there are times where the playing days, they kick in the mornings, but it is what it is. I think we all have that hurdle, but I think the book is not finished yet. Is how I'd like to, and just it's fun just to keep learning. I had an absolute great time at Quinnipiac this year, learning under Rand Pecknold and working again with Joe Dume and Justin Eddy there. And the fact that being on the other side all those years, you're kind of looking across the ice and saying, what is in the sauce over there? And now I was able to go actually see that. And, now I understand. Rand Pecknold is an excellent hockey coach. Joe Dume is, to me, one of the best assistant coaches in this racket.
And recruiters, right?
Recruiters, and could be a head coach tomorrow, without a doubt. There's no doubt in my mind. Same thing as Jason Tapp. What he's done at Dartmouth is really impressive. I like John Ronan a ton. I think John, I think is a head coach too. It's just, you just need a chance. Need a chance. And so I've been really fortunate, but I just, getting to your question, hopefully I got a few more years left. If a head coach position opens up and I'm fortunate enough to get it, then, we'll see what happens. But so I'm not going to give up that dream.
No, but I just meant year to date or life to date.
Yeah, no. To date, I always feel there's a lot left. That's how I feel.
So if I was trying to tell someone about you, 50 years from now, and you're not around telling the story, what would you want people to know about you, about Rick Bennett? What kind of a guy was he?
I just felt honest and hardworking, and obviously if I had to have to get to know you, but would go to the wall for just for a friend. And and a big one to me is trust. That you could trust. There's that old saying that hey, between me and you, when someone's giving you a story or whatever, well, guess what? If it's between me and you, it stays between me and you. And that always stuck with me, in this profession, because a lot of rumors get tossed around. But if the coach says, hey, this is between me and you, it's going to stay between me and you. So trust is a big deal.
Amen.
And I felt being lucky enough to stay in this profession that long, that people will trust you. And yeah, I've had my ups and downs, but I got through it, and hopefully that's because of your track record.
Yeah, I think Of course it is. And it's the person that you are.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of trust there. You have a lot of fans. I'm one of them.
No, same here. And I appreciate that. No, I always appreciated your support when I was at Union and even beyond. And even to have me on, this podcast, I really appreciate it. Sorry it took so long, but
no,
it is what it is.
Great.
But you always follow up on what you say you're going to do too.
Amen.
So
both of us.
Right.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to see you.
Same here.
And I will let you know once this gets posted, and look forward to seeing you during the season.
Yeah, sounds good, and all the best this summer.
All right.
And the family.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Pat. Take care.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. If you enjoy the most fascinating podcast in the world, please follow on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, and follow on Apple Podcast.